if you don't have foundations in place, anything that you do on the marketing front is not going to work properly. I'm very much someone who doesn't like to do things that aren't necessary. The minimum viable product of marketing ops is
You didn't start a business to put out fires, but here you are, holding the extinguisher. Business isn't theory, it's pressure, late nights, tight margins, the thing that keeps breaking no matter how many times you fix it. When the room's on fire, the amateurs shout, the pros stay calm. That's the Fixers and Founders way. Part discipline, part rebellion. We walk into broken systems, find the pulse, and make it run clean. Because calm isn't weakness. Calm is a strategy. We're operators, builders, problem solvers. Born from the grind. Built for the builders. Join us now as we chat with Fixers and Founders just like you. Let's jump in.
Welcome to Fixers and Founders, where vision meets velocity. I'm Tony.
I'm Forrest.
If you're a founder trying to turn on marketing for the first time, this one's going to hit. Because marketing from zero doesn't mean throwing money at ads, copying someone else's playbook, or posting more because someone told you to. It means building the foundation, your message, your ICP, your CRM, your automations, your channels, and your actual feedback loop. Today's guest, Evelyn Cools, helps early-stage B2B tech startups take marketing from 0 to 1. She's been a 3-time founding marketer, scaled startups with 0 ad spend, 4x'd partner pipeline in 12 months, and increased demo calls by 250% in 4 months. Now, as a fractional head of marketing, growth advisor, Atlanta Tech Village advisor, and host of the Growing Startups podcast, Evelyn helps founders build marketing that is scrappy, intentional, and actually ready for growth. If your marketing feels random, reactive, or like a bunch of disconnected experiments, this one's for you. I'm Tony.
I'm Forrest.
This is Fixers and Founders. Let's get it done.
Great to have you, Evelyn. I love how you take people from 0 to 1, not 0 to 250. That's great to help them get started.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think that I love building things from scratch. So when I went fractional, I actually did some research, like audience research with my past companies. And I wanted to see what they thought that I excelled at. And it was the taking things from 0 to 1 for marketing. So that's what I went with.
That's awesome. Well, you've been a founding marketer multiple times and now help startups marketing from 0 to 1. What pulled you toward early stage companies instead of more established marketing teams?
Maybe this is like a therapist question. I don't know. Like the chaos of startups. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it goes back to my childhood partially. I grew up as a third culture kid, which means moving every couple years. I lived in many different countries growing up, always went to international schools. So change was the only constant, which I think is something that I chase even in my adult life. And I think it's one of the things I love about startups. And I've become very adaptable and like thriving in chaotic environments. So for me, the startup world feels very exciting, and I get to have a lot of ownership, which is really important for me too, and feel like I'm actually making a difference at the companies that I work with. So it was just an all round, like it really suits my personality and what I love doing and building things from scratch.
Well, from working in founder-led companies, I understand the concept of being adaptable, because if you are not adaptable, you will not survive.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
I like that too, Evelyn, like way you say that you get comfortable in the chaos. I've often equated myself to like the marshmallow in a s'more, just kind of the gooey, steady center that kind of is holding things together that somehow wants to break apart.
Every founder needs the glue, you know. That's what they need to like keep the company going, because founders need to be able to like do their thing, which, like their superpower is fundraising, creating the vision, all these things that are going to move the company forward, but in the meantime, like the day-to-day has to keep working. So we need people that are like marshmallows.
Yeah, we're the fixers. We're the crazy glue. How about that?
Easy for sure.
So, Evelyn, speaking of founders, when a founder says that they need marketing, what does 0 usually look like when you first walk in?
It really depends. So I focus on seed to Series A. But even within that, you still have different stages that companies are at. So, you could either have like an ICP hypothesis, maybe some design partners, but no actual customers. And that zero is going to look very different than some other companies that I work with where they actually have a good base of customers, but they probably all came from referrals or like an existing network that people had. And they're trying to figure out what is going to scale it and what other channels would work for them. So what I look at and the foundations are going to look very different depending on where the company's at.
Good. So speaking of foundations first, you talk about building foundations before scaling channels. What are the first pieces founders need to get right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of foundations. I think it's super important, but also I want to clarify that focusing on foundations doesn't mean moving slowly. I think founders are sometimes a little bit like hesitant when they hear like, "Oh, we're going to do all this like background work, but like let's get going. We got to get stuff done." I know that that's important, but I do think if you don't have some of the foundations in place, anything that you do on the marketing front is not going to work properly. If you don't have your ICP defined, even if it's a working ICP, if you don't have like your messaging down, really understanding what the pain points are of your ICP, how to talk to them, the value that you provide, and then like basic marketing operations. So, like a CRM potentially, or it just really depends on what experiments you might be running or what channels you want to test, what's actually needed from a marketing operations perspective. So, I'm very much someone who doesn't like to do things that aren't necessary. So like the minimum viable product of marketing ops is foundational to me, but then we can build from there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people skip the whole foundation, especially right now in the whole AI innovation that we're dealing with, where people are not building a foundation. They're just producing things and throwing it out there. So,
That's why everyone sounds the same.
yeah, yeah.
You've scaled startups with zero ad spend. What do founders often overlook when they assume that growth requires a bigger budget?
I mean, I think ads are like a default channel when you think of marketing. I think, if you don't have a marketing background, it's one of the first things you probably think about when you're thinking about like what should we be doing from a marketing perspective. But if you don't have those foundations in place that we talked about, and you haven't tried other organic channels where you can really test the messaging fit and see if people are coming in through more organic ways, then you're probably just going to be wasting a bunch of money on ads. So I want to kind of caveat that by saying I will run ads for like very specific things in the beginning. If the company wants to do that, if they want to put budget towards it, it's certainly not necessary. But I love, for example, using LinkedIn or Meta ads to test messaging because in the beginning you don't have like a huge audience usually to test things with. So it is a good way to see like what wording is getting the most click through, how can we drive traffic to our website, what specific things are hitting with our audience at scale. But other than that, like I never really recommend it for those like first conversions and those first customers because I think other channels are going to be much more, I think they're just going to give you a lot more insight into who your customer is and where they actually live and why they want your product.
That's really well said, Evelyn, and I completely agree. I've been in similar situations with certain founders to where they want to default to the ad, and I found that to be a particular challenge in trust-based industries.
Mhm.
When you're needing to establish a trust and that's paramount, an ad is going to do it might feel good emotionally, or maybe if you just have too much money and you'd want to throw some of it away, it could feel good there. Though I am completely with you there. It does seem to be the default for some reason. Perhaps it has a bit to do with founder psychology, to where it just seems like it's going to get an instant fix. And I feel like oftentimes they're disappointed and they'll likely come back ideally to that organic approach, especially in the trust based space, because I've found that you can validate that trust and the messaging simultaneously by just reaching out and touching people. Like just try to have a conversation with these folks and see, where, how, or if it lands before you would ever imagine throwing money down an ad hole.
Yep, I totally agree with you. An ad hole is not not where you want to be. It gets expensive. Like if you
Yeah.
want to just like throw, I don't know, 4 or 5 grand a month that ads, like be my guest. But I can never with a good conscience say like, this is what you should be investing in. You can do so much with that money at early stages in marketing. So I feel like there's a really big opportunity cost if you're going to spend that money anyway. Like I will never recommend ads. But yeah, I think you're so right on the trust piece too. And isn't everything trust right now, especially with AI? I feel like
Mm.
you have to build trust. You have to like build that personal connection with your audience.
So, real quick before we move on to the next question with Forrest, if not ads, if you had a few $1,000s left in the budget, what would you say would be reasonable to put some juice into, if not ads?
I mean, I think it really depends on the company. So something that I like to do in the beginning is figure out like what are the 1 or 2 channels that are going to get you the best ROI based on your situation? Like, does the founder have a LinkedIn presence? Is he a thought leader in the space? Or is it something within your product that really helps like people share and you can get some like virality through that? Do you have potential like partnerships that could really get you really good leads? So it depends on the situation, which is such an annoying answer. But I think things that are working across the board from what I've seen recently are in-person events. Like people actually are really enjoying gathering again. I usually like to go for like super niche conferences, not the really big ones where you have a booth and there's like a bunch of foot traffic, but people are just there to party. I feel like that happens a lot. It's good for visibility, but are people actually going to remember you? I don't know. So I love like really small industry events and like private dinners, even really targeting like 10 people in your ICP if you're selling to like big enough for big enough deals. This is more like the B2B SaaS space. I really like that private way to like get in front of your ideal customer in a very personal way. Those are like less scale, like at scale, but I think the ones that are broader are like newsletters. I really love like getting a weekly newsletter from the founder, creating content, starting a podcast. Huge fan of that. Anything that like gets you in front of your target audience in a way that like shows them who you are. I think that's like my favorite at the moment.
I know Forrest would totally agree with that.
Yes, I definitely would. And like you say, dropping 5 grand on Google Ads versus dropping 5 grand on a dinner for a targeted group of people where you can have an intimate conversation for 3 or 4 hours is a no brainer decision for me if you can get that ideal client in the room. You talk about experimentation, and you're big on experimentation. How do you separate smart testing from the random acts of marketing that people are doing right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. It's hard though. Even if you're a very intentional marketer, I think you can get pulled in so many different directions. Founders see a lot of things online. I see a lot of things online. Like you're constantly being shown all these like what looks like hacks, like
Hmm.
growth hacks on LinkedIn especially. So it can be hard to like stay in your direction. So I always like to keep it depends on again on the stage of the company, but if we have like an established couple of things that we're doing that really work, say like I love partner marketing, for example, and that's like really what's getting us the best leads, then I like to have 80% focused on that because I know it's working and we can experiment with like how we can reach them, but it's really focused on something that's been proven. And then 20% is experimentation where we can be a lot more random and just see like, okay, I have this hypothesis that this thing might work for us, always with like a good reason. I feel like you also have to talk to founders and educate them on like, why are we doing things? So that's like the 80/20 rule is kind of how I like to look at it. But if you are super early where you're still trying to figure out your ICP, that's obviously going to require a lot more experimentation. But again, they're like being targeted enough that you're not steering too far away or like all of a sudden testing like a bunch of ICPs, but not having enough meat in each of them. And you're not really going to learn anything that way. So I don't know. It depends is such an annoying answer, but
It
it
depends.
does. That's the thing. Like I don't know. I know a lot of marketers follow like specific or especially in my space, I feel like consultants or fractionals, they have like a playbook that they're running, or they like to
Mhm.
be able to, kind of copy paste what they do with each of their clients. And I understand why, but for my specific niche, like that would be terrible. So
Yeah.
I know what it takes to be a founding marketer. So I'm not doing any of the same things across all of my clients. Like I'll learn from each of them and I'll know what to recommend, but it always looks so different.
So the good old Pareto principle, we love the 80-20 around here. Another number that we really enjoy is 90. So if a founder has just 90 days to make marketing more focused and useful, where should they start?
It's a big question. I mean, I do like to think in like 30, 60, 90 days. I think it's very helpful for founders to get like an idea of what we're doing with marketing, but also to keep yourself accountable. So the way that I like to do it is the first 30 days should be focused on those foundations. You're probably not going to get like the operations piece completely fleshed out, but really trying to figure out like out of all the information that we have, who's our ideal customer? Like which of our customers do we actually want more of? And like why did they buy? So I love now with the age of AI that I have transcripts usually to go through, or like recordings of demo calls from the last however long the company's been around and recording. So that's always like an amazing place to start. And then also anything on the sales side, like the customers that we do have, how quickly did they close? Where did we find them? How long are we retaining them? I feel like doing an exercise where you really look at all those metrics and you figure out like what is it exactly that we're looking for. It's sometimes surprising because I think people always have ideas around like our ideal customer is the highest paying one, or whoever you have in mind that you actually just like the most. But sometimes looking at that data can really help you figure out like, oh, actually companies with this size in this specific industry are actually way better for us. So that's what I do like first 30 days. Then 60 days, if they're already doing things that are working, I would like double down on those and try to make them better. So if they're already doing some email marketing, or they have like an email list that's just been sitting, I like to try to get some quick wins with stuff that's already been proven, at least to a degree. And then the last 90, or the last 30 days of the 90, I would start running some different experiments, things that they haven't tried before. So in 90 days, you should have an idea of like, how can we improve the things that are working? Who are we actually going after? And like getting some initial results on experiments to figure out like, what else can we be doing?
That's solid. Hey, Evelyn, can't thank you enough for joining us today. Should a founder want your services, want to pick your marketing brain, how can they best reach out to you and where?
LinkedIn. I always ask people this question on my own podcast. And I don't know if I should even ask it anymore because everyone's just like LinkedIn. But then there are some surprising ones that say like, oh no, I just like follow my Substack. So that's always fun. I
Or the
do
real
have
ballers that
Substack,
just give
but
you their cell phone number?
is that what you're trying to do? I don't know. It's in my
I've,
it's
I've
in my
had I've heard
signature.
people do that before. I said, wow, okay. They say,
It's not a bad
just call me.
idea. Yeah. I mean, look, I check LinkedIn pretty much the same amount as my messages like on my phone. So,
I'm
but
terrible about checking my LinkedIn inbox. It's just so
are you?
pitch
I
slap heavy.
know.
I'm really bad about it. Yeah.
I know it's
Much better
getting
about my
terrible.
email.
That's
Yeah,
another thing we
every
haven't talked about, but all the cold outreach on LinkedIn is horrible.
Yeah, that's
yes,
another show.
yeah. I
But
cannot.
yeah,
I put my middle initial and my first name on LinkedIn in the field, and that way I know when somebody's automating because it'll say Forrest K, and I'm like, no, that's not me. You've automated me. So
that's the only reason you do that.
that's the only reason I do it. But I'll tell
That's
you, it
amazing.
backfired on me because I was at a conference 2 months ago, and somebody said, "Hey, Forrest K," and I was like, "No, no, no, it's Forrest, but that's okay. That's all right."
So
So,
funny.
All right. We got about 3 minutes left before we jump to our next
all
guest.
right,
So we'll
let's.
get into the wild card questions. Forrest, take it away.
Yes, you've worked in music, audio engineering, podcasting, startup marketing. What's one non-marketing skill from that world that still shows up in the work that you do today?
I think storytelling. As a musician, you become really good at telling a story, and I think the best marketers know how to do that.
Good stuff.
Well said. Yeah, that was a confident answer. Well said. So, last question here, and we'll get on to our weekend. I hope you have a great weekend, Evelyn. You host the Growing Startups podcast and talk with a lot of go to market leaders. What's one startup growth belief you've changed your mind about recently?
It's a really good question. I don't know if it's changed my mind, but just the importance of leadership for a startup, like even more so than any of the separate functions, just like founders focusing on themselves as leaders and like developing their leadership skills has so much impact on the growth of a company. So that's just something I'm really passionate about. And I've brought a lot of guests on that talk about this. So it's just something that I'm like extra interested in exploring further.
Excellent. Well, make sure to check out the Growing Startups podcast. And if you're a fan of our Fixers and Founders podcast, I encourage you to go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow us on Spotify and everywhere.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that was Evelyn Cools. Proof that early stage marketing doesn't need to be loud to work. It needs clarity, structure, and the discipline to test before you scale. From founding marketer to fractional growth advisor, Evelyn's work shows that 0 to 1 marketing is not about chasing every channel. It's about building the right foundation so growth has somewhere to land. If your marketing feels scattered, rewind this one. I'm Forrest,
I'm Tony.
and this was Fixers and Founders.
Oh, my darlings, look at you. Still here with me till the end. That's how I know you're one of us. The fixers, the founders, the ones who build in the chaos and still manage to laugh through it. Drop a comment, share your sparks, and connect with each other. This is where the net weaving begins. Like, share, and subscribe to keep the fire blazing. Until next time.